You have a bit of a profile that people can sort of look up to and respect, and you look like a fairly cool, decent guy. And because of that, when you speak, people will listen to you, not even because of anything you have to say, but simply because you have a profile where they think, oh, I like Bonny, right? I've seen the stuff that he does. He looks like a cool guy. So by default, anything he has to say, I'll pay a little bit more attention. And then if it makes sense and catches my attention, and I can draw an example from your episode with Pumbla and what traction that got. And I was telling my wife this morning before I came for the recording, I'm like, that for me is the stuff. And I made a mental note. I said, I've got to tell Bonny, what you're doing for me is everything I've always wanted to be able to do. Wow. Being able to inspire you. No, seriously, that's listen. Crazy. Being able to do what you do and have these conversations. There's going to be a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old who watches this podcast and listens to Pumbla and makes the right decisions about his financial future. And then 10, 15 down years the road, he's able to say, I've built some wealth because back in 2025, I watched a podcast called the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, and there was a chaotic lady called Pumbla Dabachwa who said some crazy things that struck a nerve with me, and I made some good decisions, and because of that, my life has changed.
Hey, UG boy, let's talk to them. Let's talk, let's talk to them. Let's talk to them. Let's talk to them. Let's talk, let's talk to them. Yeah, I'm from a beautiful place, the Pearl of Africa. Hailing with a 256, it's in my blood, that's a gem where the mountains rise. With stories untold, the tapestry of cultures unfolding, so vibrant and bold. A symphony of stars, a celestial light. The drums beating, echoing through the night, just like a beacon of light. A reflection that's coming up from the Nile. I'm flowing straight into the heart of Africa with timeless stories untold. What's up, dog?
Elevate your podcast game today. Are you looking for a perfect place to record your podcast in Kampala? Look no further. Danceoff Studios, located at Ivory Plaza on Wilson Street, Level 3, Room 4, is a perfect place for you. Danceoff Studios has professional recording equipment, comfortable and creative environment, expert for all your podcast needs. Book your session today. Find them on all social media platforms or reach out to them directly to secure your spot. Let them make your podcast dream a reality. Danceoff Studios, where stories come to life.
I'm ready. A number will be 3 to represent the 3 most important people in my life, my wife and 2 boys. So 3, 2, 1 for God and my country.
For God and my country. There's no better way to start that. Hi, everybody. My name is Bonny Kibuuka, and I'm the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, the space where we sit down with people whose journey inspire, challenge, and remind us what's possible. Today, I'm joined by a man who has shaped Uganda's media, both on and off the screen. A broadcaster, a media executive, an actor, an event moderator, and one of the loudest Liverpool fans in the country. He's the head of corporate affairs at Next Media, a vice chairperson at National Association of Broadcasters. And if you've watched Beloved, you know him as the ruthless lawyer fixer, Henry Kaya. Ben Mwine, welcome to my podcast, my brother.
Oh, thank you so much, Bonny. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. And I'm listening to that intro and I'm thinking, who's that? That doesn't sound like me at all.
It is crazy.
It sounds like a LinkedIn profile, you know.
It is crazy. Recently, somebody hosted me on their podcast, and I'm so used at being the person reading people's introduction. And this guy read my introduction. I'm like, did I do all that? Like, sometimes you do things and you forget about it. And then when they read it, it's like, oh, wow, that's all me. So it's crazy. I love that. And I take pride in that to make people realize on the impact they have done in people's lives. So,
yeah.
And there's a few things that have stood out to me that I definitely going to talk about today, because even before you sent me, you know, when I sent my guest information, even before you included Liverpool there, I knew that before even I had your wife on my podcast, that this is a Liverpool fan. And that was from one of the clips I watched of Micah, which I'm going to ask you about. And I knew he was a Liverpool fan. I'm a big Arsenal fan, so it's going to be a good conversation. Anyway, how are you doing? How's life?
Good. One day at a time. Whenever someone asks me how I am these days, I say one day at a time because I think it's the only way to live. You don't borrow tomorrow's problems. You don't focus on yesterday's problems. You live in the moment, one day at a time. It's how God designed us. So I'm good. Very hot in Kampala, but we're grateful for the weather as well. I'm sure you'd love to have some of our degrees right now, wouldn't you?
I would love any bit of that. It is -11 Fahrenheit and -24 Celsius right now. I have a space heater going on here. I'm wearing a sweater, and I'm trying to stay as warm as I can right now in this weather. So I'll take anything, any hot weather from Uganda. You're here because you were recommended by your wife. We had a very good conversation with her, Rachel Mwine. And for the listeners, you remember that episode, we talked about that. This segment I start with is called Talk and Talk. These are some of the things that they're not in, they're on my script to talk about them. But the way I put my segments, these are just random things that I pile up at the beginning that will get us started in the conversation. When Rachel was here, I asked her about the one video I saw online. It was an event, and I think you were working at that event. She was there. She was giving an interview at NBS, and from nowhere you come and give her a pic on live TV. As a man, how do you get the courage? Because I've always wanted to ask you this question: how do you get the courage on live TV and just go for it?
So it's an interesting story that it was last year, 2025. I am part of a small outfit called the Usual Suspects. We do events. We've been doing events for a very long time here in Uganda. And so we were part of the Sisi Wainan's visit, tour, the More Than This tour to Kampala. And so at the end of the event, I think I'd just escorted the Nabagerika back to her car and then was walking down to go do the debrief with the rest of the team. And so as I'm coming down the stairs at the copper chimney, I see these guys doing an interview, and I could tell that it was our guys from NBS, and then I see who they're interviewing, and I'm like, wait, that head looks very familiar. It looks like my wife. And because I was running down the stairs, in the spur of the moment, I just didn't even think twice. I just, walk up to her and give her, because I was so happy, show had gone well. We're very excited about what had happened. And so I just go up to her and give her a big peck on the cheek and run off. And the rest is history. The giggle and just the purity of that moment, I think for me, was worth any foolishness that might have been involved in that moment. So yeah, that's sort of the backstory behind what happened there. Yeah,
it was really good, and I love spontaneous things and some of the things that you do without thinking. Some could go bad, some could go, but that one was just a lovable moment that you could just look and just laugh about, and just it's something that you can sit down and talk about now that it's spontaneous, just happened. And then the other one video, and this is also something that Rachel explained, but I also wanted to get your other side of the story. The video of Micah singing Bob the Builder in reverse, that video blew my mind away, and just watching you go through the process. How did you notice that Micah could do that, and how did that whole thing started?
So again, Micah is our second child. We've got two very clever boys. Jeremiah is now 13. Micah is turning 11 shortly. And he's taken on this very artistic thing about him where he can draw pictures. And if you saw the drawings, and I can probably try and share some of these and you can show them as B-roll if you need them. It's impossible to believe that he's drawn this with hand. You can actually think that it was, printed and he's just, simply coloring them. So we noticed that he's got a very strong artistic gift. He's incredible with his stuff. So at that time, I noticed that he was singing something and it didn't make any sense. So I asked him, I said, Mike, what are you singing? And he said, I'm singing Bob the Builder. I say in reverse. I said, but how, where? I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then he did that for maybe about 2 or 3 days. And then at some point, one of the evenings, it occurred to me, wait, there is software that can actually allow you to reverse audio. I said, so it doesn't hurt, right? So let me just record the thing. So we tricked him into singing it for us, Rachel recorded the video on her phone, and then we put it in the reverser. And then, it turns out to be the actual thing. And up to this day, we're just blown away by the stuff he's able to do. So yeah.
It was cool. Actually, I revisited that video yesterday before I had you on, to just, because I listened to it a while ago when I had Rachel. But I was like, let me watch this video again. And it was crazy to listen to the whole thing and listen to the song and much. It's crazy. Crazy things kids can do, and we're gonna talk about that later on about kids. But the other segment that we do on the podcast is called This or That. This is actually meant to break the ice, but with some guests, like the ice is already broken before even the cameras are rolling. It's just, but I still roll with this segment because it comes out to be one of my favorite. And just
it's very cold for you, so we can steal some break some more ice. So
I think I'll need the ice to break. Yeah, because it's even colder than a refrigerator. Because a refrigerator is 32. Actually, to put in context, a refrigerator is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It's -11. Yeah. So like that's definitely this ice will be for me to break. Anyway, I have 5 questions I ask you. You pick one and you have to drop the other. Feel free to explain why you picking that and dropping the other, or feel free to tell me that's my answer and I don't have any explanation for it. We'll take that. But 2 things you can't say. You can't say both or you can't say neither. You're gonna have to pick one.
Okay.
Before we continue, let me plug you onto something. You know that stress when your phone screen just cracks, or your laptop just refuses to turn on, or your charger disappears like it never existed? Yes, we've all been there. And that's why I want to recommend Rack Gadgets and Accessories. They handle repairs and sales, phones, laptops, tablets, gaming consoles, speakers, and everything. Most repairs are done in 40 minutes or less. They also do on-site repairs and deliveries, even if it's just a screen guard or a phone cover. They'll deliver it and apply it. You get free screen protector with every screen replacement, plus a 3-month warranty. They have certified technician, affordable prices, and they have over 200 happy customers. Call them or check them out on WhatsApp at 0777 589 791. That's Rack Gadgets and Accessories. Check them out on all social media platforms. Now let's get back into our conversation. Live TV or recorded TV?
Live TV, hands down.
Why?
Reason would simply be the moment. TV, I think media is about capturing the emotion. I did radio for, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. And there's just something about being in the moment where you don't have to do a take 2 or, do another take, just capturing that rawness of a moment. So live TV, any day.
That's crazy that you say that, because sometimes my podcast is pre-recorded. So I pre-record it, edit, throw it. But I watch that, and then I watch sometimes when I'm doing a live thing that's going just there. I'm more cautious, I think, on live than I'm laid back, pre-recorded. Like I can do whatever I want and just cut it back later. But those two are different. I don't know which one I like better. I don't really think it matters to me, but again, it's not my question. Maybe if somebody hosts me and they ask me that, I'll struggle with it. But today, it was yours. The other one, early mornings or late night?
Late nights. I hate waking up early. I go to bed usually after midnight, 1 a.m. I play some PlayStation, watch a movie, watch football. If Liverpool is playing in the Champions League, these days. Things that Man U fans can't say. So I'll probably stay up a bit. I know, right? So I'll probably stay up a bit late. I hate waking up early. I'll stay up in bed as long as I can. So late night.
Luxury sedan or sports car?
Luxury sedan. My current dream car is the Bentley Flying Spur, which fortunately for me combines a bit of both. I know you said we can't say both. But it does qualify as a luxury sedan, but it will probably leave the average sports sedan in the dust. So I'm going to take a Flying Spur any day.
And again, we have so the way I put my this or that is I combine the whole conversation we're going to have at the end, into just a quick fire. So it gives you a little bit of what the conversation is going to be like, because we're going to have a segment about cars. Because you'll get to hear it. Quiet family weekend or big public event?
That's a tough one,
That's why we make them tough.
I know that's tough, because it's one of these I want to say both, but you said I can't do both, so I'm gonna take quiet time with family over the weekend. Being able to create memories, I think, is very important. So I'll take quiet time over the weekend. I do love public gatherings. I do love events, but I will take, but unless of course there's money at the event which I'm making. So you're very clever, Bonnie. You're very clever. It's actually a lot tougher than I thought it would be. No, I'm still going to go quiet time with the family over the weekend.
All right. Yeah, we'll take
after the loud event. So
okay. Yeah. All right, this one. Champions League night or World Cup final?
How do you come up with this stuff? Because it sounds like a simple question, but it's not, right? Because if
You
the
know
World Cup
what?
final has Uganda in it,
Yeah.
it's going to be Uganda, right, in the World Cup
Right.
final, which will probably have happened in our lifetime. And so if we're being realistic, I'll take... No, you know what? I'm going to take World Cup final with Alan Okello scoring a hat-trick to give Uganda its first World Cup.
Oh, definitely. Actually, if you put in that context, because I didn't put teams in the
Yeah.
final, but if you put Uganda there, definitely World Cup final. But even before that, and it's just, you can understand I'm a football lover, which we're going to talk about later, but memories of World Cups when I was younger, we used to have these rooms where my dad could put a TV
Oh, yeah.
and we'd just sit in there. I think I was like 8, 10. Those were Nigeria back then and Brazil with Ronaldo's hair cut like that. Those memories always stay with me. Like, I love Champions League nights because Arsenal is in there, but the World Cup hit different. It was different.
No, so listen,
different
I can tell you 2 quick stories about this. One is Champions League night, Istanbul 2005. I remember what that was like. I missed the first half because we had a bowling tournament in the finals here, the corporate league, and I was playing in the final for Sanyu FM at the time actually, and we won, I remember. And so I got to catch the second half when Steven Gerrard was just about to bring us back into that night. So that's a wonderful, wonderful memory from the Champions League final for me as a Liverpool fan. The World Cup one is a bit longer, but it goes back much further than I think than you have existed, I would say, because in 1990, when Cameroon won the opening game of the World Cup, and my dad at that time in 1990, you only drank soda on Easter, Christmas, and weddings. And so when Cameroon won, Paul Mbia and Oman Bik and Roger Miller, I remember in that great Cameroon side, my dad was so excited. He left the home at about 9 p.m. to go out to go buy a crate of soda for us to celebrate Cameroon winning.
Wow.
Wow. So that's...
I tell people, and it's good that you brought this story, and this is why I love podcasts, because it brings things that you never really like maybe have talked about at some point. But I tell my friends here that World Cup really meant a lot for us. Even you just sharing that, like celebrating another country, an African country, because they've won something. I know 1990, I wasn't even born. You're right on that.
I know, right?
But like ever since then, like the 2000s, I was big into that because that's what we had to do. And since we're already here, and I know this wasn't part of the thing, but like I'm a free spirit, like I go wherever. What was your take on the AFCON and just a summary of it? I know it wasn't like a whole.
Again, nice that Uganda is actually now being able to qualify for a few more tournaments, and we're getting better clearly. Shame that we couldn't make it far. But then, of course, everyone is talking about the final and what happened. Lots of lessons, lots of stuff to learn from there. I think number one for me is Sadio Mane and what a great person he is. I was watching, Deutsche Welle did a wonderful video about him. That's on YouTube right now. I think I actually watched it last night. And it was incredible seeing the spirit of the man and who he is and what he's done. And I'm so happy for him that he was able to do what he did on the pitch at the final and then go ahead to lift the cup, even though he was not captain. I thought that was very incredible. I thought it was very shameful what the Moroccans did and how they behaved, the whole fiasco with the towels and, all of that stuff. But again, this is what football is, right? You have lots of drama, and even when things don't look like they're going your way, God has a way of balancing things. I will never forget hearing the screams in the neighborhood. What normally happens is when I'm watching a game at night, especially late at night, and someone scores, I usually mute the remote to hear the sound in the neighborhood. Usually it's the Arsenal fans who are the loudest.
I was going to say, that's a memory for me too when I was home, like Arsenal TV.
Exactly.
If you hear the loud noise from the
So you just mute the TV and hear the sound around you. So when that goal goes in extra time, and I mute the sound, and you can hear the whole of Kampala just going wild, it just showed you what football can do for not just a country and a community, but a continent. And so very happy that Senegal won that. So wonderful experience. Enjoyed it.
It was amazing. I actually bought a subscription for just those games. I had fun. I enjoyed watching Uganda. It was so unfortunate. Our last game with Nigeria, it was disappointing, but it is what it is. And that's what football comes with. And the finals of Senegal and Morocco, I was watching that at home, and I remember telling my wife, I don't think I've seen anything like this before, like how they all went off.
No one has seen anything like that. No one has seen anything like that.
It was wild. And I didn't know the backstory of Morocco too.
I think the word is unprecedented. Yeah.
I didn't know the backstory of Morocco, but watching videos of what the people had done, it was so disappointing. And anyway, yeah, I love football, and that's why I was like, I cannot hesitate.
The important thing is we won, right?
Yeah. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
We'll get back to football at some point, but right now, we're gonna go into our first segment, and this segment is where we cover about your life, your journey, things you love to do, things you've done. And then football will come back later because we've not even touched on Liverpool. So we've just been talking about nationals and countries. But I want to start at I won't say serious because every conversation we have is serious, even when we're laughing, but more like a deep talk for the people that are going to be tuned in. They might not be interested in soccer or football or something, but you've often spoken about finding your purpose at a young age.
Mm.
Was there a specific experience or something you went through that just clicked for you and said, it's my purpose, I'm going to follow that?
Yeah, it was. I have a very interesting story. I don't know if I should say used to be very clever or are clever, because I've done some foolish things later on in life. I think what I can say that would probably be relevant is that I have a very high IQ. So, because that doesn't change no matter how foolish you become in life, right? So because I have a very high IQ, I went to school very early. I was 10 when I started my S1. And so in boarding school, moreover here in Uganda. Yeah. So you can imagine a 10-year-old already in secondary school. And that was quite an experience for me. So, but then in 1993, when I was in S3, we went for a seminar at a school called Maryhill High School, which is across the road from Mbara High School in Mbara. Here in Uganda, and there was a seminar. It was a YCS seminar. YCS is a Young Catholic Society, I think it's called. And there was this one guy who came to speak to us, and he was a youngish guy, maybe about 32 or thereabouts. And this guy walked into the room, and he was wearing boots, like high boots. Now, please, you must understand, nowadays you can go into any store, shop in Kampala and get some incredible shoes and boots and things like that. Back in the 90s, getting premium stuff was very difficult to find. It was very hard to come across good quality stuff. So this guy walks into the room and he's wearing these very nice, expensive looking shoes. And I took one look at that guy and decided instantly that anything he has to say, I am buying. Because it was the kind of thing of where you look at a guy and you're thinking, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. He looks cool. He's, dreams, right? His life goals. And the guy talks about being able to know who you are and what you've been called to do early in life, and why it's important that for us as young people, we understand why this is key. I was 13 at the time, and 93, incidentally, was the same year that the first FM radios went on air here in Uganda. And listening to, I think at the time it was Alex, the late Alex, unfortunately passed away, and Christine Maadri on Capital at the time, I decided instantly, I want to be on radio. This is what I want to do. This is something that I think I can do easily. Please note I was a villager in Mbara. I could hardly speak decent English, but in my spirit, in my mind, in my body, everything just said, this is who you are, Ben. This is what you're supposed to do. Eventually, I get to discover, maybe about 5 years later, going into the university, how that fitted into my bigger purpose in being able to help younger people become better versions of themselves. And to do that, you need to have a profile where they can respect you. So if they see you on Beloved, or they see you on TV, or they hear you on radio, or see you at an event, you have a bit of a profile that people can sort of look up to and respect, and you look like a fairly cool, decent guy. And because of that, when you speak, people will listen to you, not even because of anything you have to say, but simply because you have a profile where they think, oh, I like Bonny, right? I've seen the stuff that he does. He looks like a cool guy. So by default, anything he has to say, I'll pay a little bit more attention. And then if it makes sense, and catches my attention. And I can draw an example from your episode with Pumbla and what traction that got. And I was telling my wife this morning before I came for the recording, I'm like, that for me is the stuff. And I made a mental note. I said, I've got to tell Bonny, what you're doing for me is everything I've always wanted to be able to do.
Wow.
Being able to inspire. No, seriously,
That's
listen.
crazy.
Being able to do what you do and have these conversations. There's going to be a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old who watches this podcast and listens to Pumbla and makes the right decisions about his financial future. And then 10, 15 down years the road, he's able to say, I've built some wealth because back in 2025, I watched a podcast called the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, and there was a chaotic lady called Pumbla Dabachwa who said some crazy things that struck a nerve with me, and I made some good decisions, and because of that, my life has changed. And so for me, being able to understand the power of that early on then gave me a very instant recognition of what my purpose then should become. And then going along the way, being able to get a bit closer to God and building a stronger relationship with God as a Christian, then sort of put all of that together. And I think I've been able to do a little bit of what I think I'm called to do. I'm just getting started, I think. I probably have another maybe 15 very good years in me to be able to do that, hopefully at national level. I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later on, I guess. But just going back to the early years and being able to discover that your life can actually mean something, but that you discover that when you're young, because it sets the tone, I think for me was extremely important. So that sort of set the tone for what I would do. Yeah, so
That is amazing. And just listening to that, and I don't know if listeners get tired of me saying this, but the reason why I don't stop saying it is because it means a lot to me. Like the guests that I bring on this podcast, and somebody has mentioned that I like your choice of guests that you bring, because I look at somebody who is going to inspire somebody, because that's the goal of the podcast. I think we're going to laugh. We're going to talk about Liverpool. We're going to talk about Arsenal. We're going to have Banter. But at the end of the day, I want somebody to not to waste their 1 hour tuning in. And it starts with me. When I pick these guests, I was like, I want Mr. Ben to inspire my life. And after I'm inspired, the listeners are going to listen to it and it's like, hey, I'm inspired by that. But it starts with me. And I do this podcast for myself. I tell people that I do it for myself because I get inspired first, and then people will get to hear it because people are not here right now. But I love it. I love how you broke it down on the nice words that you had to say about this podcast, because that's a goal and made me feel very happy.
So can I tell you something? I don't know if you've had this before, but again, one of the things that I love to do, and I've learned this over the years, is that it's very important to help, because I like attention myself. I like to be validated. I like affirmation. So every time I get an opportunity to be able to give some good, positive, constructive feedback to someone, I will. And I wanted to be able to say this to you in public, that in my opinion, your podcast is the Ugandan version of Diary of a CEO. I'm sure you've seen that. And so just watching the stuff that you do, and I'm thinking, yeah, you're Uganda's Steve Bartlett. So well done to you.
That is deep. That is deep that you say that, because I look up to Steve Bennett, Diary of a CEO, like Jay Shady. And that's something I wanted to bring to Uganda. And since you mentioned that, I want to explain. Somebody commented on one of my videos and was like, this video only has 500 views. And I was like, he didn't mean it in a bad way. He was just saying, like, this work is so good to only have 500 views. And I respected that. I appreciated that. And the first thing I put in my head is like, the type of conversation I'm having is going to be hard for some people to like it, you know? Like, even when I have 500, I'm happy that 500 tuned in, because I know the style of work I'm doing is not what everybody is doing. And it's not only for like some people, which I want everybody to actually tune in, because it'll be beneficial for them. But it's actually growing, it's improving. And I don't get upset when I put up, I'm like, that was a good episode. That was a good episode. And then you put it out and then 500 people watch. It's like, oh my God. But I told them, I'm going to come back again. I'm going to come, because I have this goal. The vision that I have of this podcast is like to change lives, to impact lives, and to have our own Diary of a CEO in Uganda. Like, this is a kind of podcast that we have this type of conversation.
Listen, man, I think you're doing that already. It's only a matter of time before people get to discover it more and more, and then it goes back. But also, if 5 of those 500 people that watch that episode end up becoming a CEO, a minister, or an MP here and change the entire course of a nation. I'm a strong believer in individuals being able to do incredible things that turn an entire society around. So if 5 of those 500 actually are quality people that are going to make a big difference, then it's worth it. I don't care if it's another million, if they're going to be useless people. If the 5 are quality, then that is success. And I think you should be very proud of that.
Exactly. Thank you very much for those kind words. And on top of what we are talking about, you also talk about discipline and delayed gratification. And we are living in this world where everyone, and it actually lines up with what we've just been talking about, where everybody wants instant results. I'm going to start a podcast and I want 1 million views. I want 1,000 views. I want this. But how do those two principles like shape your journey, especially in the early days, like the discipline and delayed gratification?
So unfortunately for me, it's one of those stories where I have to use myself as an example because I've had to learn the hard way. I'm now 46, going on to 47, and I probably should be worth maybe $2 or $3 million. I started working when I was at the university. I had the right investment opportunities. I had an opportunity to get into Bitcoin in 2013, right? And had a bit of money at that time. I could have been able to do that. So I would probably have flown into the US to do this podcast live with you on my private jet if I had made the right decisions at that time, right? So I look back at this stuff and I keep thinking to myself, there were so many things that I should have done differently. And one of the things that I do nowadays, I make it a purpose. I work at Next Media now where we've got about 500 people and maybe 65-70% of them are young, quite young. And I keep realizing on a daily basis that most of them are still making the same stupid mistakes that I used to make when I was 20, 25, where you're taking half of your salary and you're spending it on a weekend night out, right? I'm thinking, what are you doing, man? If you guys got together and put some money together and did something in 10, 15 years, you're going to do incredible things. And so just a couple of days away, I was sitting with a friend and I was trying to explain to them the importance of delayed gratification and thinking long term. And so allow me to explain this for a moment. You younger guys have become burdened with this thing of where if Ben is driving a GLE, I need to get a GLE now, right? Because I've got to get it now. I need to get that thing now. And you don't realize that the years are going to run by so quickly. You're going to blink and you'll be 40, right? And then you'll blink again and you'll be 50. Right now, usually it goes 1 year at a time. So you're 23, 24, 25. When you hit 30, what happens is that the increments now come in 5-year terms, right? It's no longer 1 year, 1 year. You blink, you're 35. You blink, you're 40. You blink, you're 45. And so it's going to come quickly. But the encouragement is this. Now at 46, going on to 47 this year, I feel like I'm just starting my life, right? I'm still able to play football with 24-year-olds and give them a run for their money. I can still run a marathon. I can still walk well. I've still got stamina, if you know, you know. And so I'm sort of thinking you have a lot of time. So don't be in a rush to try and get to that big picture. And once you understand that, then you begin to work backwards, right? And so you say, if you're 25 now and you made the right decisions and start making the right investments and start saving correctly and start having, which is where now discipline comes in as well.
Right.
And you're spending $400K a month on beer and alcohol. And again, I know people say you can't use this example. It's tired, it's worn out, but it's there for a reason. And I said to them, if of the $400K that you blow a month, if you decided to have some accountability partners and say, before I blow any money in the bar, I'm going to take half of that money and put it away. And if you find a compound interest calculator anywhere on the internet and look at what you would do, and I did this figure with someone just 2 days ago, if you put away $200K a month, right, and put it away in a unit trust and don't touch it and let it compound over the years, when you get to your 45th birthday, I think my calculation is that you probably should have somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 200 million shillings from just money that you'd be peeing after a night and puking, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it that way and decide that when I turn 45, I want to be able to buy myself a brand new car for my 45th birthday as a gift, and then start working towards that. You can do other stuff along the way. You can still go ahead and have some fun and, support yourself, which I think you should do. But if you then put some targets, clear targets on stuff that you want to do, right, it then becomes much easier for you. The other thing that I would say very quickly about this is this, that you've got this thing where the younger people now start becoming a bit too ambitious and giving themselves very stringent deadlines. I must be in my own house by 35. Says who? Why? Why are you putting yourself under that much pressure?
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to live until you're 65, 70, listen, yeah, if you want to buy a plot of land, that's fine. Land, I can understand. I'm able to agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the point in trying to be in a rush to be in your own house that early. Because the house that you can afford at 30 is probably going to be a shit house anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you turn 45, you're going to want to upgrade it and change to a much bigger house. So what's the point? Take some time. Take your time. You still have time on your side. Enjoy your life a little bit. Make memories. But then begin to invest smartly and wisely and save in such a manner that by the time you turn 45 and 50, you're then in a position to be able to spoil yourself and buy some really good things and do some stuff for yourself or your kids at that time. And I think the Jews and the Indians do this very well. It would be really good if us blacks, if us Africans could learn to do a little bit of what those guys do. It would be very helpful for us as well.
I like that take, and you definitely broke it down in the best way possible. And hopefully the people who tune in will look at it the same way. And in addition to that, I saw one of your videos that you did, and this I was going to talk about in the cars, but it actually fits in here too, where you did a video of helping the young people realize what kind of car they should buy. And those are some of the things we don't put into our heads when we're doing. You don't think ahead or like do the math. You're like, okay, I want this car at this age. What am I losing? What is it costing me? And I was actually applying it to my life. I was like, so I have this car. I love my car so much. I talked about it in one episode. Somebody asked me about it because I post a lot about it. I have a Toyota Tacoma 2021. I bought it in 21.
That's a beast.
And,
that's a beast, man. I love it.
It was. I've done some modifications on it, lifted it like about 2 inches, and then put some bigger tires on it. Like Vubuka, like that kind of. You see a Vubuka likes his car to look like a monster or something like that, which was pretty cool. But obviously, I'm not saying that I'm perfect in the choices I make, but there's things you want that you like to do. But you were talking about how much money people spend for gas when they're going for work or going somewhere. Like we don't put that into consideration. And they did the math. Like if somebody was saving this much money, it was like 700 million or something like that for a year.
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that we don't think about. But it's through this kind of conversation that we correct our mistakes. And again, I'm saying, even with the episode you talked about Pumla, I learned a lot. Because I was talking about anytime you have some money in your account, it's like, what can I buy? What can I buy? What can I buy? Because you have some money in your account. But those are some of the things that we change our mindset. And I'm happy we have this conversation. Yeah, you made a hot take when you say like something that challenge a lot of people is that education isn't a guarantee for success.
Yeah.
How should young people think about education today without completely dismissing its importance?
I've been in running battles with a couple of guys on X. I'm mostly active on X. I find it to be the easiest platform for me to work with. Okay. And so I put up, Aisho Speed was here in Kenya. He did a video with Tenge. And I put up a post that said that Tenge is making CEO salary and people are insisting on getting their kids into LDC, which is the law school here in Kampala. And the lawyers were triggered, and I got some insults and people sort of missed the point I was trying to make because of the way I guess I put the point across. But here's what I was saying, right? The world has changed so much now that even in a place like Uganda, for you to think that you're going to go to school, get out, then go find a job, and that's the template, doesn't work anymore. When I went to school, when I did computer science back at the university, I finished in 2000, going into 2001, being a computer scientist was a guarantee that you would get a job almost instantly. There was, I think, maybe 30 people in my class at the time doing computer science. And all of them right now are, either big executives or commissioners in a ministry or something. A couple of them are CEOs. A few of them are running their own companies. But at that time, it was much more straightforward. If you went to law school, chances are you were guaranteed to be able to have a fairly successful law firm or be onboarded as in-house counsel for one of the big companies, right? If you did well. Now, you go to law school and chances are you will struggle to be able to get a job as a lawyer in Uganda because we are churning out so many lawyers that, and I stand to be corrected by the lawyers who are watching this, but I have been told that on average, the starting salary for a person who finishes law school and gets a job is probably going to be about 600 to 800,000 shillings a month for the amount of time you spent in school and what you're doing, and that is going to be your only source of income. That's going to be a problem. And my argument was that you need to be able to have some extra skills. And I'll give you a very basic example, Bonnie, and I'm sure you understand this because you're into this space quite a lot. How much do you have to pay to get editing done if you're not doing it yourself? And how easy is it to get done?
I do my editing myself, but yeah, you put in some money for it. Yep.
Exactly. So if you probably have to pay yourself at the moment, but if you are to pay an editor to do any editing for you, if you got too busy, and at some point I'm sure you're going to get to the point where you have to hire a couple of editors to do stuff for you, you're going to have to pay them maybe between $50 and $100 an episode to to do it for you. Yep. Right now, even here in Kampala, getting someone to do some good graphics work for you. I know people talk about AI and all of that. There's stuff that AI won't be able to do. AI won't edit a video because it doesn't tell the story. It can't capture the right moments for you. And so being able to have that extra skill for stuff that you can do beyond just going to school. I've got friends who did forestry and are now doing marketing. I've got friends who did engineering. One of my very best friends is an engineer, and he currently runs, I think, in my opinion, the best run bakery business in Uganda called the Bread House. And so school is important. It gives you certain basic fundamentals that you require in terms of discipline, in terms of critical thinking and analysis and connections and networks. But for you to depend on school for your livelihood, I think is a fallacy. And for us who are now having kids who are younger, we must be cognizant of that and help our young kids to be able to think beyond school. I've said this in public and I'll finish by saying this again. When I'm having these arguments with people online, I tell them this. I want to live my life in such a manner that by the time my kids turn, 18 or when I'm retiring or ready to leave this earth, that I have been able to do enough stuff to leave a small kitty or fund behind me, that if Jeremiah or Micah, my sons, or the twins that are, yet to come, want to do something, they can do that without having to worry about rent, right? I want to be able to do stuff where they think, if I want to do a podcast, I can do a podcast, right? If I want to go do music, I can go do music. Not because my life depends on it. I want to leave them something where they don't have to worry about rent, they don't have to worry about tuition, they don't have to worry about food or upkeep or any of that stuff. And then that gives them a platform to then go and say, Daddy has left us in a place where we have a place to begin from. I don't have to go and study something because my life depends on it, right? I'm very strong on their discipline. Yes, I'm making sure they have good grades in school, and both of them are doing very well in school. But I've decided that I don't want my kids to have to ever look for a job if they don't want to. Let them do what they want. If they want to find a job, let them do it because it's something that they love to do and enjoy, not because their life depends on it.
I 100% agree with every single word you say. And if I'm to repeat what you just said, I'll exactly repeat what you said. And I'm going to choose to just agree with you and just go with that because, yeah, we've seen people make money, like even kids who went to school. Example here in the States. And I've talked about this with some of my college friends, like, is college really necessary or not? I agree with you. Like, yes, it helps you to have a different kind of, you can tell somebody who went to school and somebody who did not go to school out in the public, but it's not 100% that it's going to help you achieve like what you want to achieve, like it's a tool that you need. You definitely going to need it. But it's not everything. So like we've seen kids that go to college because their parents say, okay, everybody's going to college. You're going to go to college. You put money there and then you come out and then it's just like a waste of it. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you on that. I like to go into like your career and what you have done in the media space. You've stayed relevant in media for almost 30 years or more, which is not easy. What's the mindset that has allowed you to stay evolving instead of being left behind?
That's a very good and deep question at the same time. We're in a space where Everyone is on TikTok now. That's where if you want to be famous, also you're going to go. I opened a TikTok account a couple of months ago. I haven't been able to use it fully yet, but I know at some point I'm going to have to, get a dive into what that is. But I think for me, one of the big things that has always been a hallmark of everything that I do is to be relevant. And so we recently got, Rachel and I, my wife and I recently got a small gig, if you want to call it that, to do some influencing for a company. And when we were doing the analysis, to sort of do a pitch to them to say why we are a good fit for them, I discovered that I had better engagement online than some of the biggest brands in Uganda. And even I was taken aback a bit. I'm like, oh wait, I'm actually not doing that badly at all. And I realized that it sort of comes down to being relevant. Having done radio, breakfast radio in particular, for almost 20 years, you have to be on your toes. You have to be thinking, what would people be interested in talking about early in the morning? And sometimes it's the most mundane stuff. It's not even the politics or current affairs or any of that stuff. It's basic things. I'll give you a very simple example that usually grosses people out. Are you aware that the amount of time that you spend on the toilet seat is actually important for your health, right? It sounds like something that no one would ever pay attention to, but here's the thing. When you get into a rhythm in the morning where you go with your phone, a glass of water in the morning and a passion fruit and sit down, you actually have about 2 or 3 rounds of what we call a download or a number 2 in your system. And if you stay there long enough, that's going to come out, it's going to cleanse the system. Now, that's information that's extremely relevant to everybody, but people usually will not talk about that, right? Now, over the years, I've found that I have a bit of a chaotic side to me, and I'm a bit unhinged, and I will talk about stuff that maybe people are not very keen on talking about, and then you have people telling you, I was thinking exactly the same thing, I just didn't know how to say it, right? And being able to do that, I find sort of keeps you relevant. And then the second thing would be understanding that you're not getting any younger and you have to keep adapting. So I'm now 46, but I've got to be able to understand what information would be relevant to a 30-year-old, what information would be relevant to a 26-year-old. And so I love spending time with my sons. I love spending time with my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids, because then you get to listen to how they think, what's going on in their minds. And it helps me be able to create content if I'm doing that in a manner that addresses them. But I've also been at a level where I have been a business leader for most of my adult life. I was a manager from when I was maybe 22. And from that time until now, I've either been an MD or a CEO or a senior manager, whatever I have been. So I'm then able to sort of have interesting conversations with business leaders and treat them like my peers. So for me, it's that thing of being able to, I can talk to a CEO as a fellow CEO. I can talk to a teenager as if they're my buddy. And so being able to try and adapt and stay agile and balance that, I think, sort of helps you stay relevant, but also being able to create ideas and be supportive of people's ideas and give input into stuff that people do that helps make them better, I find has been very useful for me. And so I think that has been very helpful in sort of sticking around. And then 2 years ago or so, I got into the acting space, and that's a very interesting story. Maybe I should just dive into that for a second as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that, because that was going to be my next line or talk about, because I was gonna tell you how you.
No, so you intro it, and then as if I didn't hear anything, right. and then we can talk about it.
That's funny. I like, one thing I like about this podcast is the way I said it, to tell somebody's story, and it makes me happy when sometimes I'm like, iwandikandike dako nange nenda vikanga. So I'm like, you did your research. But I love it when somebody just follows my script of like, okay, this is what I was going to talk about. So it's really cool. But no, before I leave the point that you were talking about evolving, because that's why I was going to back off that and then bring you into this. It's necessary. Like, a lot of people are doing podcasts. A lot of people are starting podcasts in Uganda, around the world. But that's the thing that I keep telling myself, how are you going to stay relevant? Because we've seen this with traditional media, like radio, the radios that we used to do, the style they used to do. And now that style doesn't work right now. So you have to keep up with what's going on. And it's the same thing with podcasts. Like people are starting podcasts. People are doing how are you going to stay relevant? Like that's why every time I give my time to myself, like what can I bring different? What can I introduce in the podcast to stay engaged and just keep going things? So yeah, we really need that to stay relevant and stay evolving, because if you stay behind, it will just leave you. But you and the other thing you mentioned about was like you've worked as a manager in front, and you've been in front of the camera. You've done everything, and you were explaining some of the lessons you've learned. And on top of that, you added on acting. So you started acting and building a solid social media career. What pushed you to say, let me step into this step too? Or is that part of your evolving steps?
It actually is a bit of the evolving steps. So again, I have a bunch of friends, my circle. They're called the Breakfast Boys. It's a bunch of maybe about 20 something, almost 30 guys. We just lost our first member on New Year's Day actually this year. It was very tough for us. I did a post about this actually, the guy who invented mobile money, and there's a whole story there that we don't have time to go into. But we have some very interesting conversations, and one of the ones that we've had over the last maybe 4 or 5 years has been the fact that we're not young anymore, and that in another 10 years, we will be unemployable. And it doesn't matter how much money you have at that point. If you don't have something that brings meaning and fulfillment to your life, you're going to die very quickly. And so we've been having deep conversations around, okay, guys, what are you going to do in the next 10 years, right? When you turn 55, what's the plan? What are you going to be up to? What's going to keep you awake every day, right? And for me, it was 2 or 3 very quick things. One, obviously, is being able to have impacts on younger people and mentor people and sort of pour myself and the lessons I've learned into the next generation, which I've been trying to do. The second one is being able to teach people about God and be a teacher of the Word of God. It's something that I've done my entire life, and being able to do that consistently. But then the third thing was in terms of just stuff that I do for me that makes me get proper fulfillment and go in the right direction was, as a vocation, I'm not going to be an MC or moderator in the next 10 years, most likely. My bones will probably start giving way, so people will be looking for younger MCs now and younger event moderators. So I'm thinking, what am I going to be doing, right? And then I bump into, at the time actually it was Matthew Nabuiso, because I've known this guy, again, I've been in the space for a very long time, so Kampala is small enough, you literally know everyone who matters in any sort of space, being in the sort of world that I have been in for the last 27, 28 years. And so we did a COVID commercial, I remember, with Matthew and Pablo during COVID, a PSA. And at that time, I remember Matthew mentioning how, like, hey, we did a one take, right? And that was it. We didn't need to do a second take for the commercial. And Matthew says, you should give this thing a bit more thought, right? And I told him, actually, I've done some acting before. When I was in high school, I was in the drama club. When I was at the university, we were part of a wonderful ministry group called Celebration Zoe that used to do a lot of drama in schools and universities. And then there's a legend in Ugandan film and production here called Irene Kulabako, a good friend of ours, who brought me into a couple of her projects. I ended up doing a radio series called Rock Point 256. I was one of the lead characters in the radio version of that play. So I'd been doing a bit of acting, but sort of under the radar. So when Matthews mentioned this, I said, hey, you know what? Acting is the one thing that you can get better at as you grow older. Samuel L. Jackson, Will Smith, Morgan Freeman. All these guys are like, they're like gold. They're like fine wine, right? And I thought to myself, how many actors in Uganda above the age of 55 or 60 are still relevant at the moment? And it was hard to count on both hands how many actors you have that are seniors in Uganda at the moment. The ones we have are getting quite on in age. ABK, Andrew Kibuuka, who is my brother in Beloved, incredible actor. I loved doing things with that guy. He was just absolute Abimuchivi, right? But these guys are maybe about 10 years ahead of me. So I'm thinking to myself, who is coming after these guys, right? I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here. If I start doing this stuff now and do it well, in the next 10 years, I can be able to position myself as one of the leading senior actors in Uganda. If a guy is looking for an actor casting a role for a CEO, a Ugandan CEO, for a lead role for a big movie project, who are they going to look for? I've been a CEO in my life. I understand this stuff. And then if I'm able to act well, I can be able to do that quite easily, right? So Nathan Magola, who's our EP for Beloved at the time, had just finished doing Prestige. They were going into now doing Beloved. And then his casting director, wonderful lady called Justine, reaches out and said, Ben, I know you're very busy with Next Media and all, but would you be interested in pursuing something that we think might fit you well? I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. So we had a discussion. We found a work around my time for work. It was a bit hectic for, both of us. I must have caused those guys a lot of headache because I hate being impatient. If we say roll time is 10, it's going to be 10. If it's not, I'm going to throw a tantrum. And I think I was able to bring some decent value as well to help guys understand the value of time and being professional. And so, yeah, long story short, we did Beloved. Incredible experience. We had a great time with Helen and Bakan and all these guys.
Yeah.
And so for me, the feedback that I got from that and the stuff that people said, I was thinking, this wasn't a bad call. I think I can be able to do this well. So even this going into 2026 now, I've told these guys, I've told Nathan, I've told Matthew, I've told whoever is doing any serious stuff, if you've got a really good role that you think would fit what I can do, I'm available. I won't do anything for the sake of acting. I'm going to want to do stuff that will put me on the right path to becoming an A-lister in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I see a lot of opportunity in there, and I think it's something that I can do well into my 60s and 70s if I'm still around, God willing. So that's the sort of story behind what I think about the acting journey. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
I like the line that you say, I won't do anything just because of acting. That's something that we need to remind us who are younger. And I tell people a lot about having values and having your own values. Don't do something because that's what everybody is doing, or that's why we chase money. And sometimes when we're chasing money, we can give away ourselves just for the money. But you can chase the money, but you need to have values. There's different ways you can chase some money. And I've talked about that a lot on the podcast here. And while you were explaining, we've talked about a lot of things even to this point. And I'm like, the question I can ask him, what can't you do? Or what don't you do? But like, what? I was going to ask you what else. What can't you do? Tell me one thing that you can't do.
You know what, Bonnie? The truth of the matter is, again, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast. I have a fairly high IQ by some weird purpose. God decided I should be fairly clever. And so I tend to be a bit useful. And the value that I bring normally in the places that I have worked and the projects that I get involved in and the stuff that I do is that because of being able to think a little bit differently from most people, I'm ambidextrous, so I use both my left and right side of the brain. You have perspective that most people will not see. And what that also does is that it gives you that versatility to be able to do a lot of things differently. And so it's something that I'm grateful for. I don't take for granted. And it's been a wonderful gift that I have been able to make use of a little bit, not enough, I think. I believe that maybe, I think next 5-6 years, if God allows, I would want to be able to have an opportunity to use this gift that I have and the abilities that God has given me to serve my country. I think that Uganda is in a very delicate place where we need some good thinking, some strategic thinking, to prepare for the next 25, 50 years. I believe and keep insisting, and I know that this will trigger some people right now, but I honestly think that on average, as a country, Uganda at the moment is extremely myopic. We don't like to think long term. Everything is about Mfunirawa,
today,
Kagwirawo, Can I get something now? What can I get now? Again, the whole thing about the delayed gratification seems to be a national syndrome, right? Where even as a country, we're not thinking, what do we do to create a culture for us as a country? If I ask you right now, Bonny, I know you're not here at the moment, but if you think about Uganda as a country and think about us as a people, what's our culture? If you think about an American, there's a certain fundamental thing about Americans that are intrinsic to any American that is taught from when you're young. Patriotism is almost by default. Being able to sing the Star-Spangled Banner, being able to hoist a flag on 4th of July. If you go to the Nordics and talk about the Scandinavians, the Norwegians or the Dutch, there are certain things that are inherent to them. They are extremely brutally honest people. Like if you talk to a Dutch person and ask them to tell even the smallest lie, they will tell you, why? I cannot do that. It's not possible, because they've been built as a people to be extremely honest. The Indians are very frugal and good at business, and it's built into their system and their culture. Same thing with the Jews and all of that stuff. What is our culture as a Ugandan people? We are a collection of maybe almost 60 different tribal groupings that are all over the place and do their own thing. As a nation right now, we don't have an identity. I think there is an opportunity for us as a country to create an identity as a people. I think there's an opportunity for the people who are running the country at the moment, or the ones who take on after them, whenever that does happen, to forget about the politics and the Mediarero and Efunero now, to start having a proper national conversation around Uganda as a society and what culture we want to have for the next 2 generations, 25, 30 years from now. Right now, that's not happening. And my worry is that the kids who are coming up now are likely to get worse than we are. Your kids are going to be a lot worse than us guys were, because we are not thinking about who we are as a people. And I'm hoping, and it's if there's one thing that I pray about every night, is for an opportunity to be involved in the process that allows us as a country to then start having a conversation at policy level, at strategic level, about creating a culture for us as a country and then build it. I don't know when the last time was that you were in Kampala, but if you look at the way our border riders ride in Kampala, it tells you everything you need to know about us as a society, and we've got to fix that. We've got to go back to a place where we build some structures and discipline as a country, where people have a certain norm that guides us, where you go back to being kind to people, where if you're getting into the road, you let the person in front of you cut in because it's the right thing to do, where you're nice to a waitress. That stuff doesn't come by accident. It's got to be taught. And forgive me, I can rant about this for the next 3 hours, but I'm very passionate about it, and I hope that I can be able to be involved in that before my productive years run out. So yeah.
No, I definitely appreciate that. And one of the things I try to do better is to let my guests, like when somebody has something that they want to share, it's really important. Like this, what I have here can wait. But what you have to say is really important for the people, because this is not about me. I know I love the podcast, but like I know a lot of other people are going to use that. And there's a reason why God is making you say the words you're saying right now, even though like it wasn't part of what we're talking about. I don't interrupt to that. And from you saying that and just listening to you, I feel like you and I, our minds are like, the way you reason the things, the way you express them, and even talking about how the country needs to be better. And this is something I've been talking to people. I say it's like I try to avoid politics on the podcast, not necessarily like I'm going to be arguing or abusing people. I don't do that. No. But politics, you cannot avoid politics. But the way you elaborated it, it wasn't about who did what, but like just the thinking of our people. How can we get our country better? That's what I care about. I don't care about political parties. I don't care about what. I care about somebody who has a mindset to change the country for a better place. And that's why for my podcast, like, I could get 1 million views to just come here and talk about or something. Like, you can do something and just go viral. But that's not the calling. The calling is to like create impact, change minds and change. So however that long is going to take, like that's my goal. And we just don't go for anything that's out there and anything you can do anyway. Yeah, but I know we have a lot of stuff. Actually, we're just on my third sub-segment.
I know.
And, I know. we're going to try to run through these next ones and just talk about them because it will be important for the people. But the one part I know I told you, just like me and the way you answer your question, one thing for sure I know I have in common with you is a husband and a father. I'm a father to one daughter. God willing, I'll have more kids. But I have my daughter. She's almost
many
3.
more kids.
Yeah. And becoming a dad changed how I see things. Everything now,
Yeah.
like work, time, like even success. How did becoming a father change you in a good way?
It's a very difficult one to summarize, but I'm going to try really hard. There's a video I put on my X actually this morning before we did the recording today. I know this will probably go out a bit later on, but on my X account, I put a video of a guy coming back home to his wife and 2 kids, and they're toddlers. And so the moment he walks into their house and the way these kids just come in and jump into his bosom, and the caption on that post, I think I said that there are feelings that cannot be described in English.
Mm-hmm.
And now you, with your daughter, you'll understand this very, very well. So when I hear a young person saying they don't want to have kids, which was me when I was younger, I'm like, kids are a burden, they are a lot of work, which is true, they are a burden, they are a lot of work. But once you hold that little life form in your hands for the very first time and realize that you're responsible for bringing another life into the world, and that life that now depends on you entirely for its being, that changes you.
It does.
Suddenly you stop driving at 200 kilometers per hour on the highway to Mbarara and,
I'm laughing because that's exactly what changed my mindset, because I'm a fast driver. I was like, I have my daughter in the car.
Dude, listen, I used to do Kampala to Mbarara in 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And if you've done that trip before, you'll know how quick you have to be able to do that. I used to do Kampala to Entebbe in about 16.5 minutes. True story. I'm a proper speed demon. And then my firstborn comes in and suddenly you're thinking, maybe no, let's keep it at 100, man. Just you want to be able to. So that's the everything about your life changes. You realize that your life doesn't belong to you anymore. And every decision you make now is dependent on how does this affect my kids, right? But interestingly, my story is a bit unique, and I think I've shared this just a little bit of it before on Crystal's podcast, actually on Crystal's One-on-One, and where I went into detail about the time when my firstborn was born. I was dealing with a clinical depression at the time, and I was suicidal, and then Jeremiah is born, and all of a sudden you have something to live for, and you're like, hey, this guy is here now, right? So we've got to fix this stuff. We've got to make this thing work for this guy.
Uh-huh.
And so in a nutshell, for me, being a father literally changes who you are, makes you a better person. You can't be angry just anymore. You have to be an example. You quickly realize, and I'm sure you're probably seeing this now with your daughter now, that she's a copycat. She has to copy everything that you do. She's picking your mannerisms. So you have to be very cautious and careful about the stuff that you do, what you say, because you realize, they are watching. They are watching me. So how can I use that to teach them some stuff? And so best experience in the world. I would say I don't think there's a bigger and better honor than being a parent. And being able to raise kids that you can look back and say, I've been responsible for helping turn a young life into something meaningful. You can't beat that. You can't beat that.
That's 100% correct, and exactly the way you said it. And I was laughing throughout because the things you were touching on is exactly how life was going, and like things are changing in my life from seeing my daughter and the impact I want to have for her. But on top of that, like as men, we're celebrated for the hustle. Or he's a hardworking guy. He does this. And like you do a lot of stuff. You talk about the things that you do. How do you chase your ambitions without losing your family in the process? Because sometimes we can get lost into chasing money and working. Actually, that takes me back to my this or that question I asked you about a quiet time with the family. And then you talked about how you're making money at a concert. This brings us back to this.
No, and I think it's a very important point, especially for the younger guys who are now beginning to get into families. if you decide to chase your career and ambition more than anything else, you might go ahead and make a lot of money and then realize when your kids are turning 16, 17, that they don't know you, that you don't know them. And unfortunately, at that time, it's impossible to reverse that. And then you are, for lack of a better word, you're screwed. Because you've missed a chance to create memories and opportunities and relationship with your children. So what I do is I am very deliberate about the stuff that I do with my kids to create memories with them and be there for them and for them to understand that I'm there. I'm still going to be a dad. I'm still going to be tough on them where I have to, but I need them to understand that I am there for them and that they matter to me. I will not miss a visiting day. I will not miss a school activity. I have had instances where I will turn down a gig if I promise my kid that we're going to do something on a particular day and we agree on it, and it's a promise that I've made to them. It doesn't matter how much money you're paying me. I'm going to turn that down.
Exactly.
And people have called me foolish for this. They're like, you can go and negotiate with the kid and explain to them that you need to make money for their own being and move this thing to another date. I'm like, yeah, you can do that, but the impact you're going to have on that kid is going to be very negative. And I'm thinking there'll be other opportunities to make some money. I'm sure some will come along the way. And so I have turned down some really, really lucrative opportunities to be able to go and do some gigs, for example, because I'd promised my kids that we're going to do something on, their birthday, for example. In my world, my birthday, my kids' birthdays are public holidays. On those days, as much as I can, I will try and take a day off and make sure we can do some stuff together that creates memories, because that's the stuff that is going to last. When I was growing up, Bonnie, my dad used to commute from Kampala to Mbarara. He would come to Mbarara every Friday evening, spend the weekend, and then come back to Kampala on Sunday evening before we moved to Kampala. And the biggest memories, and this is where my love for cars comes from. My dad would drive down to Mbarara. He would put us on the back of a pickup. We'd go to fetch water from a nearby river called the River Rizi in Mbarara. And so my love for cars stems from that point, because my bonding with my father was tied to a car. When he came to pick us from high school back in the 90s, again, he would come pick us from school, would go to the village for a weekend and then drive to Kampala on a Sunday. I was the designated DJ in the car. We were using cassette tapes. Most of your viewers don't know what that is anymore, or have never encountered any of those things. And so I would have a pencil in the car. I would know what songs I want to do in the car. So I'd have like 5 or 6 cassette tapes and I'd, go to the particular song and then play around with that. The benefit of that was that I would get to sit in the front seats, because I was a designated DJ. And so my love for music and how I end up turning into a radio presenter sort of comes from there. My love for cars sort of stems from there. And so you can see how that bond with my father then gets tied to everything that I now love and do that brings fulfillment to me. And so this nonsense of focusing on trying to make money at the expense of creating a relationship and a bond with your kids is one that people need to be aware of, because it's one of those things, unfortunately, where you cannot reverse it no matter what you do, because if you miss a certain period, you'll never be able to get that back. So I'd say do whatever it takes to make sure you can take time off to be with your kids and create memories with them.
That is really deep. And that's one of the things I wanted in my life, to just be there for my daughter. Like, it's the same way. And I just say whatever you say. It's like, I concur with the first speaker. That would be me in the debate.
Nothing to further to add, my lord.
I concur with the first speaker. But no, the same way you explained it is the same way I look at my daughter now. Like, she gets time she needs it. And I want to be there for her. And I like to believe my parents did a great job to raise me, and I want to do even better. And that was a promise to myself. Like, I want my kids to have what I never had. Like, the things I felt like my parents would have done better here, I want to do that to my daughter. Like, I want to be there and do that for her. So definitely, and for the people out there, you can't trade anything for the time and the moments that you create in people's lives. On top of that, you've strongly spoken about marrying the right person, and you and your wife, Rachel, have talked about this on her podcast, on different podcasts you've been on. And it's just a summary of that. Like, beyond love, what should people actually pay attention to before committing to somebody?
Again, it's one of those things that gets talked about every day. You can never tire of talking about it because it's extremely important. But I think that we've got another challenge at the moment where the younger generation now get excited by things and get into commitments without actually understanding what they are committing themselves to. Feelings are not that important. I think you need to understand very clearly that feelings are not going to be the most important thing in your relationship along the way. They're important to have. They're good. A lot of your feelings when you've been married a while now, so you probably understand this already. When you've been married about 2 or 3 years, you realize that your feelings are actually a byproduct of the relationship as opposed to the other way around. And most people don't understand that the feelings will come from how you treat each other. You as opposed to you treating someone because of how you feel feel a certain way because of how someone treats you. My wife has a thing that she likes to use, and I've picked up on it along the way that I love. She keeps talking about how love is to the other person.
Yeah.
Love is a doing thing, it's a verb. We know this very well. So for me, for the younger people, I would say 2 or 3 things. Number one, understand that feelings are not that important. Physical attraction is extremely key, but should be like number 3 on your list. The character of a person is important. Someone might have the best nyash on the planet, but if they're going to make your life hell, then you will not want to touch that nyash at all. You're just going to be thinking, right? So you want to be aware of that. The second one is this nonsense of saying, I've got to get a certain amount of money before I settle down with somebody needs to change, because it's in building together that you grow. As long as you know that someone has a plan, there's potential. I think it's most important for you to think about that more than anything else. And then third is involve people in your relationships. I keep telling young people nowadays, if you meet someone that you think you like, don't be shy to interrogate who they are, where they come from. Make sure they meet your friends. Make sure they meet your family. Because in doing that, if there are any red flags that you might have missed, people will be able to track them for you and say, hey, but Bonny, are you sure about this chick? Guy, I've had 2 or 3 things that suggest that, hey, Ojaktomela, right?
Yeah.
And many people now make such grave mistakes simply because they were in closet relationships. And then you go in too deep, and then before you know it, you've crossed onto the other side, and then suddenly you discover, oh, I married a monster. And then now you have to go through the whole process of disentangling yourself, which is just painful and messy. And so save yourself the pain. Put in as much work as you need to beforehand, so that when you get into this thing, the only thing you're worrying about is working on making the relationship work, and working on improving your communication, and working on how you can be better friends, as opposed to thinking, oh my God, what did I marry? Because then at that point you're in trouble.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree with that. It is a lot of, like, I have friends that are going through a lot, and they share with that. You see their life and their journey and things that they struggle with. So it's really important to take a pause. Don't be in any rush. Take your time and think about it, pray about it, and like you said, share with a friend. Ask their opinion. That's something I had to learn. Like sharing with a friend and sharing with somebody. It doesn't mean like anytime you have a problem, tell people your problems. No, but like something to help you see it better. And that's what I do across my life, even like with the podcast. Like I ask a friend, hey, I'm planning to do something like this. You think it's making sense? You think this? They'll help you see something you can't see fully around. Like you need more eyes into that something. So it's definitely needful and helpful. Anyway, along all the way from this podcast, I've been talking about how I've agreed with you. Everything is good. I concur with the first speaker, but this segment is where I don't agree with you 100% and 20%. Let's take some friendly tension right now. You are a proud Liverpool fan, and I'm a big, huge Arsenal fan. First and foremost, I mean, I know this will be like a long story for you to break down. We're going to just summarize it till the end, just here on surface. What made you fall in love with Liverpool? Along all the 20 teams, you pick Liverpool.
Just like every single little boy that grew up in the 80s, it's a very simple answer. John Barnes. Big League Soccer at the time was showing on UTV, which was the only channel in Uganda at the time. You won't be able to relate with this.
No,
because you have access to all the content and everything.
It's you run the show.
So our very first access to football at that time was two-pronged. Football Made in Germany was a show that used to give us access to the Bundesliga, a guy called Pierre Litbaski, I remember. And that's why I fell in love with a team called FC Cologne, which is up to now my team in Germany. I love them. They're doing very badly now. But then Liverpool, at that time, John Barnes was doing quite well. And then, unfortunately for me, very, very unfortunately for me, I fell in Liverpool just, I think, a year before they won their last title back in the 90s, I think it was, before that entire 30, almost 30-year spell before we won the league again. So I got into Liverpool because I'm left-footed as a footballer. I'm a decent footballer. I've played some decent football along the way. Up to now, I can still conduct myself well on the pitch, so him being left-footed, him being black, him shining in the first division at that time was just, I'm like, oh my God, who is that guy? He's like a magician on the pitch, right? Fell in Liverpool, never looked back. And then along the way, when now we start getting mainstream access to football, with the Steve McManaman and that entire generation and Ian Wright coming into play, and then transitioning into Stevie G. There was just something about the Liverpool culture and the way the fans conducted themselves that had a certain level of class that you Arsenal and Man U fans will never understand. That, sort of, you can tell Liverpool fan is most likely the one to be driving a Rolls Royce. The Arsenal fan will probably be the one driving a very loud Subaru, that sort of thing.
How about a Man U fan?
And Man U fan will probably be on a border.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. Actually, we're playing them tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, so I sort of then just, and again, sort of things. So I think you probably understand this. You don't choose your team chooses you. Because even when you try to switch off, you're just in love with this thing and you're not going away. So even when things are bad, you're stuck in there. Arsenal fans know this very well. It's been a while since you've won anything meaningful.
You're preaching to the right crowd right here.
You're still waiting for your first Champions League.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me, like, why do you just keep supporting this team? It's like, that decision was made like 20 years ago and it can never be changed.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. There's no way you cannot
change that. Yeah.
You cannot change that.
But I'm extremely happy for you guys. I think that if you guys don't win the league this season, I'm going to be angry with you. I'll be happy. Trust me, I will celebrate if Pep can beat you, because then we'll have a little bit less noise in Kampala. But I think Arteta has done an incredible job over the last couple of seasons. I'm very happy that the Arsenal board has kept faith with him. He's been vindicated. If you look at where you are in the Champions League, looking very strong. Mm-hmm. You've got a very healthy lead in the league that will take a miracle to overturn at the moment. So extremely happy that you've been able to do that, but enjoy it. It won't last long. I'm sure next season is going to be another one. We'll be back where we belong. So you better enjoy this year. This year we're giving to you. You can have fun. Next year, gloves come off again. Yeah.
But no, I'm a big Arsenal fan. I love Arsenal.
Have you been to the Emirates yet?
So that's the most disappointing thing. I've not. But I hosted Rickman here, and it's a big Arsenal fan. And we both agreed that if the last game we know for sure we are winning the league, I am going to Arsenal. I'm going to camp there. Whether I have a ticket or not, I'll be outside the gate and just celebrate. But if I have a ticket, I'm running into the stadium because, ever since I started supporting Arsenal, that was the last time we saw a trophy. So for all my time of supporting the league, we've never won. We've come close. But I agree with you that this year, if we don't take it, I'm going to be very sad. And I'll definitely take a sabbatical from supporting Arsenal, go back to my normal business. I'll just look at it from afar. But it's been so much painful.
I've tried doing that with Liverpool and I've not been successful. You just can't sort of get away from it. So one of my big dreams for retirement actually is that I would like to be in a position where I can be able to go and attend at least one game at Anfield every month.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to talk about ambition for me as a person, what life looks like, if I'm thinking about what my later years are like, and the prayer that I have, if God opens the heavens now with a curtain and says, "Oh Ben, what can I do for thee, my servant?" One of the things that would be at the top of that list would be, give me an opportunity to have the sort of resources I need to be able to take my boys to Anfield once a month to go watch a game. And I think that's going to be possible. So we'll see.
I'm
We'll
the
see.
same way. I feel like I need to take my daughter to a game. I know she knows now Arsenal. She knows when it's on the team. That's Daddy's team, Arsenal, and like she knows some of the players. And it makes me happy when she says that. What are you watching? Soccer. She wakes up in the morning. It's like on Saturday morning, and she's like, "There's no soccer on the TV." Like she knows. Like I'm always awake watching soccer. And I just bought a different projector on a different wall. So she likes to take over the TV sometimes when she's watching her shows, and I'm just watching my game somewhere else. Anyway, on that, I know we could talk about this. And I think, trust me, I've had prepared for you, but I know like the time for the studio and the listeners, I had to put this close, but I know we have time and you'll be back here anytime, or we can have a longer conversation about stuff and parts two. But one question I'm going to ask you about this soccer thing, Klopp era or Liverpool versus this Arsenal current project. 2 legs. Who's winning?
Klopp, hands down. We had more heart, we had more heavy metal football, a lot more desire. Trent Alexander-Arnold, you guys have no chance. No chance.
If it wasn't this current Arsenal team, I would agree with you. I still could agree with you to some extent, some percentage, because I remember Klopp's team was good. Alexander Arnold
we beat you
was good.
5-0, I think, at some point, didn't we? We
But that
put
was
5
like
past you at
old
some
team.
point.
I don't think you could beat this team 5-0 right now. Actually, I think it's going to be hard for any Premier League team right now. We could lose some games, but it's going to be hard for any team to beat Arsenal more than 3 goals. That would be.
I agree.
I mean, I'm saying that, and we're playing.
No, I
Manchester
absolutely agree.
United tomorrow,
Your defense has been incredible. I think one of the main reasons that you're winning the league, I think for me, and I've been telling my Arsenal friends, is because you have a really good defense. Your defense is very strong. You're conceding very few goals, and I think that's a very good backbone to start to be able to win anything. So you're doing incredibly well on that. So
we could have even been in a better place if our front line was firing very well. We could have been better, but it is what it is. Football comes with all that. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this episode with some quick fires, like I call it rapid fire. You just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you this question. It doesn't have to be the right answer. It's just the first answer that comes to you. You ready?
Prayer.
One habit that changed your life.
Prayer.
A mistake that taught you the most.
Online trading.
One thing young men misunderstand about success.
Delayed gratification.
A belief you've had to unlearn.
People don't change.
What legacy matters most to you?
What impact you have in other people's lives.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Anyway, I just realized that, I mean, we talked about cars, but we didn't really like fully have a segment about the cars.
Oh, yeah. We can't finish without talking about cars,
so
man.
That's why I brought it up. I saw
so.
a video of the car you were unveiling, the Toyota 2024. It was really
the
cool.
Prado.
Yeah, the Prado.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my dad used to drive those Prados. Like, I grew up with those, the ones you show, the older ones, the 2016s, Yeah, my dad
you were a
used to
planned
drive
child.
those. Yeah. But one dream I had when I was coming to the US, I was like, if God ever blesses me and I get money, I'm buying a Toyota Tacoma. And I got my first job. I got here and I got into aviation. I got my first job. I didn't have any kids at the moment. It was just me and my wife. We're making some decent money. I was like, Bonnie, now is the time to buy the Toyota Tacoma. If you don't buy it now, you'll never get it. And that's the car that I bought. I'm like, I'm going to have that thing for the rest of, for as long as they can go for a long time. That's one thing that they're known for.
Yeah, they can.
So I drive it. Like I told you earlier at the beginning, I've done some modifications on it, lifted it, put bigger tires, change some headlights, and I like messing with all that stuff. But what was your dream car? And I know you've I saw some videos, you interviewed a lady who had what was the car? It was a small red Toyota. Starlet. Yeah.
Sandra, yeah.
Tell me about your dream car and how you're passionate for cars. I know you talked about how you
So I've got one of my best friends. He's called Bob Booger. I'm sure you'll probably watch this at some point. He likes teasing me that I am one of the biggest enigmas he's ever seen, because my dream cars are always so far removed from what I drive, because I always have these exotic dream cars and then I'm driving an Ipsum. I drove 3 Ipsums at some point in my life. He's like, what's wrong with you, man? I like to be practical at the moment, but my dream cars change regularly. And there will be different levels. I can never have one car as a dream car. because they serve different purposes. So at any given time, there will be 3 different cars in my dream car garage. At the moment, and there are different levels. So let me just explain this way. There's screw you money dream cars. There's successful money dream cars.
Yeah.
And then there's hustle life dream cars.
Yeah.
So very quickly, to take you through that.
Mm-hmm.
Screw you money dream cars. I've got a Bentley Flying Spur in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I've got an Lexus LBX Maurizio RR
Okay.
in the parking lot, and a Lexus GX 550 Overtrail. And for each of them to serve their different purposes. The level below that, I'm coming down to an LS 500, the Lexus, the slightly older one, because it's a very good car. You can be able to maintain that. I've got Mazda MX-5.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was one on my list for the dream cars, Mazda MX-5.
That is still there. Yeah, that sort of stays there. And then below that will probably be, I think where I am now, a very decent Subaru Outback and a Mazda CX-5.
What do you think of the Legacy, like Subaru Legacy?
My wife loves it. It's her dream car at the moment. So I've been given a challenge to buy that for her birthday. So we'll see what we can do with that. But I think a bit too heavy for me. For what the Legacy is supposed to deliver, I'm going to still go and pick a Mazda MX-5 because it will still do everything that you want. And then you can get an Outback for your family running around. So you have one car for throwing about on the weekends, and then have an Outback which still has a good 2.5 liter engine that does what the Legacy does to put the kids in the back and still have some fun. So yeah.
Quick thing on that, actually, it reminds me when you say like an Arsenal fan, you compare the Arsenal fan to people who drive a Subaru or something. And it's so funny. When I was younger, I was telling my parents, I have to buy a Subaru because of the noise it makes. And my mom was like, kana kagala nyo Subaru. Like on the TV when we saw Subaru, those noisy Subaru guys in Kampala.
Yeah.
Man, those guys are, but it fits an Arsenal fan. Yeah. I talk, but I'm not super loud as an Arsenal fan. Like I banter with people online, but I'm very loud.
Yeah.
I think it's just my personality. I can go back and forth, but like, no, there's some loud Arsenal supporters, which those ones will represent us. Anyway, Ben, I can't wait. And this is one of the things I miss the most is like we have this deep conversation. Like, I wish you were just in front of me and I wish I could just be close to you. Like anytime you can hang out, you can just do this, get this. But I'm still thankful to God that I'm able to even have this and we're able to have this conversation. And I'm sure the listeners will enjoy this, pick out something they learn and have fun with it. And I'm sure one day we'll sit back and have this conversation again and talk even more. But for the listeners, Ben, this has been an incredible, powerful conversation from purpose and discipline to fatherhood, friendship, football, legacy. We've talked about everything. I feel like each segment we've talked about could have been a podcast episode on its own. That was it. But thanks very much for sharing your story. And to everyone watching or listening, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with somebody who needs it. Subscribe, leave a comment, and let us know your biggest takeaways. And I know a lot of youth, you're going to learn a lot of things from this conversation. This has been the Ugandan Boy Talk Show, and I'm Bonny Kibuuka. And we'll see you next time when we see you. But before I send them away, is there anything else you wanted to wrap up with to say?
Yes, actually there is. I just remembered something that I thought it was very, very important. I've been in the media space for a very long time, and I needed to give you some commendation. From the time that you reached out and said, hey, can we do this thing? I have been absolutely blown away by your level of professionalism and organization. My wife runs a very good podcast, The Good Wife, and I was telling her, listen, you need to go and pick everything that Bonny is doing for his show, line for line, word for word, and pick that SOP and incorporate it. So it's incredible just how organized you are. I feel sorry for your wife because it probably means you have OCD, but I mean, it's mind-boggling just how incredibly organized you are. And I think I've learned a lot from just, I'm putting this in my work, for our production and stuff that we do. So well done to you.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. And some of the words you say is just like, because I read your introduction here, like there's this guy who has been a manager at Next Media. I look up Next Media. I have a lot of friends who are working at Next Media that I've interviewed. Actually, I had Victoria Sibea on this podcast recently.
Yeah.
On Monday, I'm having Uncle Mark coming on through here. It's been amazing to just see the work that you guys do and looking up to you. And you hearing you say these words is a testament, and I'll use that to even keep going higher and keep improving, because there's no settling here. There's a lot of room for improvement and growth and creating more impact. And speaking of that, I almost forgot my final three. These are also one answer questions that you can just tell me one answer. What's a life lesson you've learned in life to this point?
Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart.
That's
and
my
lean not
favorite
on your
verse.
understanding. Yeah, in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths.
That's a good one. That's my life verse. And I think I told Rachel or somebody that verse straight up, the word for word tells my life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Everything you need for life is in that verse. If you can just take that verse and apply it to your life, you're sorted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another one. What gets you excited about life?
The potential of what can be.
Exactly.
Just being able to hold on to hope for things to get better wherever you are.
Who would you like to see on this podcast next as a guest? And you help me get this person here.
There's way too many people. I've got a friend, one of my friends, the guy who, I think I mentioned him actually on the podcast earlier on, the guy who owns the bread house.
Okay.
He's such an eccentric character. He shies away from the media quite a lot, but I think his story would be absolutely incredible. It's quite something. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people who shy away from media, but when I talk to them, actually, I've had people like, oh, Bonny, it's a saga camera. I'm not. But when I talk to them on how I do my conversation, I'm not hosting you here to throw you under the bus. I'm not hosting you here to ask you questions for you to give me wakozewa, wakozechi, who is it? No, that's not. For me, it's conversation. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna talk like impactful stuff, and if that's something is in your bag, then definitely this is the right place. And I've had people change their minds. Like, man, I was so scared, but once I sat here, it just everything that was just cool. So. Hey there, my name is Bonny Kibuuka, the podcast host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Also, leave a feedback on this podcast, so that's how we grow. Thank you very much and be blessed.
Hi, my name is Ben Mwine and I appeared on the Ugandan Boy Talk Show with Bonny Kibuuka. We had some incredible conversations and I think it's one to look out for. Shared some incredible life stories and some key lessons, but also why Arsenal fans like Subaru. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, look out for it. Should be a fun show to watch.
Arsenal fan casting strays everywhere. But actually, something I didn't mention to you is Liverpool actually was my second. If I'm to choose a team to support in the Premier League, would be Liverpool.
Yeah.
There was only one time when I was upset at one game. I think I hated Liverpool for some reason. But no, I love Klopp. I love the players. Salah. Even when he had money, it was a good team. I liked Fabio Robin. What was his name? What's his name? Fabinho. Yeah. I like him because of his faith, and I love players that acknowledge God. And I loved him on his Instagram. He would post reading a Bible, like just praying and just saying his life. I really love that. I love that about some Arsenal fans, Arsenal players too. They acknowledging and putting that forward. All right, Ben, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Let's stay connected. I have your number. When I'm in Uganda, I would definitely have to meet. I'd like my family to meet your family.
You know, when you were talking about this stuff, something that sort of flashed in my spirit. And so I'm going to prophesy. At some point in the not so far future, you and I are going to be at Anfield watching Liverpool play Arsenal. So
let's go.
And when this happens, I'll remind you of this, and you're going to be in absolute shock. So might be sooner than you think.
Yeah.
So
after I take out the conversation we've had about collaboration and stuff, I'll keep this segment at the end, because once we have this footage on here, I'll be there for forever on the internet, and we'll always come back and we'll have that kept there. So, Ben, thank you very much. Let's take some time.
Would love that. Would absolutely love that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Let me plug you onto something. You know that stress when your phone screen just cracks or your laptop just refuses to turn on? or your charger disappears like it never existed. Yes, we've all been there. And that's why I want to recommend Rack Gadgets and Accessories. They handle repairs and sales, phones, laptops, tablets, gaming consoles, speakers, and everything. Most repairs are done in 40 minutes or less. They also do on-site repairs and deliveries, even if it's just a screen guard or a phone cover. They'll deliver it and apply it. You get free screen protector with every screen replacement, plus a 3-month warranty. They have certified technician, affordable prices, and they have over 200 happy customers. Call them or check them out on WhatsApp at 0777 589 791. That's Rack Gadgets and Accessories. Check them out on all social media platforms.